Hello and welcome to another episode on Maritime Radar. Nigeria remains a pivot of West Africa's oil and gas and maritime activities owing to its strategic locations in the Gulf of Guinea. Blessed with vast inland waterways resources estimated at nearly 3,000 kilometers, comprising more than 50 rivers that can support a vibrant intra-regional trade. Nigeria is the largest oil producer in Africa and the fifth largest exporter of liquefied natural gas in the world. Nigeria's size and population are key drivers for large-scale importation, especially of petroleum products, owing to the lack of sufficient refining capacity. The oil, gas, and maritime industry have for decades been of strategic importance to the economy and even political stability of Nigeria, and its crude oil and natural resources are the backbone of its economy. How to develop local content in a foreign-dominated shipping industry and drive the full benefits of the blue economy are some of the issues that will be on the front burner on today's show. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Nigeria, which is ranked the 7th largest oil producer in the world, is the only oil-producing country that does not carry a drop of its crude. Industry statistics show that Nigeria generates an estimated annual cargo throughput of 150 million metric tons, with freight earnings in excess of $5 billion in her international trade transactions. 95% of this income is earned by foreigners, with job deprivation that comes with it. The same dominance by foreigners is also extended to the domestic shipping market, where an estimated $3 billion annual marine-related spending in the oil and gas production activities are virtually earned by foreigners. What is seen is a situation of so much activity and so much money, but little impact on the lives of Nigerians. No wonder the country's bad economy accounts for the high level of frustration and restiveness in the country. With this in mind, the federal government of Nigeria came up with the cabotage law in the maritime industry and the local content policy in the oil and gas sector to tackle these challenges. Yet, implementation or political will has ensured the almost death of Nigeria's shipping sector. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
The Nigerian Shippers Council (NSC) has announced the approval of revised haulage rates for cargo transported from eastern ports to various destinations within the country. These new rates were established through negotiations aimed at balancing cost concerns with efficient cargo movement. The negotiations included freight forwarders, truck owners, and other stakeholders. Speaking during the meeting in Lagos, Executive Secretary and CEO of the NSC, Barrister Pius Akuta, commended the stakeholders for their collaborative efforts on the matter. The NSC boss used the occasion to emphasize the maritime sector's importance to the Nigerian economy and called upon stakeholders to support the government's initiatives aimed at the sector's development. At the time of the 2022 review, the cost of diesel was 300 naira per litre and the exchange rate for the United States dollars was 400 naira. Currently, diesel prices range between 1,500 naira and 1,700 naira per litre. The rising fuel costs led to calls from truck owners for a revision of haulage rates. Even as the naira has continued to gain against the dollar, the Central Bank of Nigeria has carried out a downward adjustment of the import duty exchange rate from 1,405 naira to a dollar to 1,364 naira to the dollar, which took effect on the 28th of March. The CBN has also imposed restrictions on international oil companies, allowing them to only transfer 50% of their foreign exchange earnings immediately and requiring a 90-day wait to transfer the remaining 50%. Nigeria's financial regulator said it has been successful in settling over $4 billion backlog in foreign exchange forwards. The Lagos State Waterways Authority (LASWA) has partnered with the Keverton Offshore Support Group to build boats and check capital flight in local boat manufacturing, building by 70% and have invested 1 billion naira. The CEO of the group, Olabode Makonjola, said that the partnership with the Lagos State government to build 25 ferries underscores the importance of alternative modes of public transportation that are efficient, reliable, and environmentally friendly in the light of the challenges posed by road congestion and pollution. He highlighted that the ferries would contribute significantly to the state's transportation infrastructure, with their construction by Nigerians expected to have a substantial impact on job creation and skills development within the state. LASWA's General Manager Oluwadamilola Emmanuel said the partnership with Caverton would reduce capital flight and importation of passenger boats by 70%. 15 of the 25 ferries are expected to be deployed soon. The International Maritime Organization, IMO, has participated in the 9th meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body for a World Health Organization instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. IMO Senior Legal Officer Chan DeBoer highlighted the importance of designating seafarers as essential workers, given their critical role in the supply chain at all times. Seafarers' welfare and safety, as well as their rights to cross borders, should be protected. The content of the draft text of the new instrument is currently under negotiation between WHO member states. It is expected that the text of the draft WHO pandemic agreement will be finalized during the current set of negotiations.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Developed maritime nations of the world attain success in shipping by protecting local operators. In Nigeria, statistics show that over 20,000 ships work for the oil and gas sector on Nigeria's waters, with an annual expenditure of over $600 million in the upstream sector. In this chart with Mina, Oforiokuma, chairman, Sopetro's Offshore West African Limited, and former governing council member, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB. He shares the impact of NCDMB in the development of indigenous practitioners in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. Stay with us. Okay, it's good to have you on the show.
Good morning, madam.
So let's start this conversation looking at the Nigeria's indigenous shipping. What will you say is the experience or reality looking from the maritime and oil and gas sectors?
Well, Nigerian indigenous shipping, I say, in my perspective, is first of all governed by the Coastal and Inland Shipping Act, the Cabotage Act of 2003, which obviously lays out clear guidelines of how Nigerians can participate in indigenous shipping activities. So in line with mining of ships, ownership, construction or fabrication of ships in country, and yeah, more or less. So that's the regulation is there very clear. Unfortunately, 21 years after the Cabotage Act, there hasn't really been a lot of difference. I mean, our tonnage capacity has increased, but not in the manner in which it should have in the light of oil and gas exploration activities going on in Nigeria.
So in your view, will you say, in reality, the implementation of that act has failed?
Well, it depends on what side of the fence you're looking at it from. From the perspective of fleet expansion and tonnage capacity, it has achieved certain goals. But in terms of the achievables, which I believe should have manifested, it hasn't done very well. In terms of manning of our ships, extremely poor. I wouldn't give it a pass mark. I know NIMASA has done a great work in terms of our Nigerian Seafarers Development Program. Unfortunately, today Nigeria is not on the white list of the IMO. So that has obviously impacted the capacity building capacity of our flag administration to upskill our maritime workforce.
We'll look into that more. Seafarers in the course of this discussion. But I want to take you through, you to talk us through the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, which you were a part of. What will you say has been the milestone achievement in its about 14 years? How has it helped in the development of indigenous practitioners, especially in the oil and gas industry?
Well, looking at it from this perspective, yes, like you said, I spent 6 years and 7 months on the Governing Council of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board from 2016 till June last year. And obviously, by virtue of the NOGIC Act, which came into force in 2010, a lot has changed. When we came onto the Governing Council in 2016, local content achievement in the Nigerian oil and gas value chain was approximately 25 to 26%. The board set up in 2017 a 10-year transformative roadmap in 3 phases: short term, first 2 years, medium term, 3 to 5 years, and the long term, where we are right now. And I believe as we sit down, the target for 2027 was to achieve a minimum of 70% local content. I believe today we are in the region of about 60%, safely to say. So from that perspective, the Nigerian Content Board has done exceptionally well. There has also been a lot more investment in not just in engineering, in exploration and production activities, in marine support services, and other areas and fields of service provision. There's also been, by virtue of this transformative roadmap, sectoral linkages with other sectors of the economy. And I must recognize the efforts of the current administration today, who a couple of weeks ago signed into law an executive order more or less mandating local content in other sectors and MDAs of Nigeria. So in the last 14 years, it's been a great achievement, I must say.
Okay, some people will say maybe they'll build on what is existing, and maybe the score moves from 60 to 80. So what will you want to see if that is to be achieved?
Well, first things first, you need to go back to basics. You need to go back 21 years to the Cabotage Act. Don't forget that the flag administration in Nigeria, which is NIMASA, the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, has a collaborative agreement with the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. So in the area of marine service provision, which you must know accounts for a major percentage of the industry spend in oil and gas exploration activities, they need to collaborate a lot more in terms of certain revisions to the Cabotage Act to bring her in line with current realities, and also in line with the transformative roadmap of Nigerian content to be able to increase our tonnage capacity. Today, like I said to you earlier, Nigeria, unfortunately, is not on the IMO whitelist. What does that do for us? NIMASA, as a flag administration in charge of maritime education and training, issues what's called certificates of competency to our seafarers. Rather unfortunately, the global maritime labor supply chain is very vast, requires a lot of input from countries like us who have seafarers who speak English, who are physically strong.
Okay, so you were talking about building capacity for indigenous shipping, but we would talk more about that. What is the cost of this foreign dominance on Nigeria's indigenous shipping? But that will be after this short break.
Okay.
Please stay with us.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the New Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on New Central's social media platforms. New Central, Africa First.
If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Reader, and I still have with me Mina Oforiokuma. He is the chairman, Sopetro Offshore West Africa Limited, and the former governing council member, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Before we went on that break, we were talking about foreign dominance, and you were saying that it's not bad to allow foreigners to be a player in the industry, right? And you were also saying that collaboration was key, but some stakeholders will say it's costing us so much. It's also not in line with the Cabotage Act, which allows Nigerians to play in the Nigerian waters. So can you shed more light on that?
Okay, you mentioned the Cabotage Act. We do have the legislation embodied within the Cabotage Act and also the NOGIC Act, the Nigerian Content Act. And so when I say foreign dominance or foreign participation, excuse the word dominance, I don't think that's an appropriate word.
Okay.
Foreign participation in the industry is not bad. It's not bad to the extent.
But it has gone beyond participation, because what you see is how much do we have indigenous players in the field?
I got it. It is to the extent that it is governed by extant laws, and those laws are respected from the perspective of regulatory compliance and enforcement. It's not a bad thing. Okay? But like I said earlier, when we went on the break, you leave the doors open and the cat is asleep, the rats will come in. And that's basically what is happening here, you know. So foreign participation is extremely important in the area of collaboration with indigenous operators to upskill our workforce and to have a transfer of technology and to enhance our in-country capacity.
So those are the ways we are going to send out this rat, or some of the rats. Do you think we should send all the rats away or some of them?
Well, like I said again, let's go back to the law. Okay, so let's go back to the Cabotage Act. Basically, what's the objective? The objective is enhance in-country capacity in marine service provision. We are not a maritime nation. Yes, we've had our own foray from the days of the Nigerian National Shipping Line. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of a bad story. A lot of banks today will not finance marine-related investments. A lot of them have been burnt. And so when we go to the law, there is a provision in the law, like it's done everywhere else in the world. It's done in Dubai, like it's done in Brazil, where you must legislate and enforce joint venture partnerships with the indigenous operators taking the lead. The joint venture partner, or technical partner as you'd like to call, will now provide the support. And a local content plan will be submitted, which will show a succession plan, will also show a training plan to upskill the indigenous operators to a point where your technical partners can exit and you can continue the business.
So how do we set the pace for this collaboration? Because it sounds good.
Well, again, so let's go back to basics. That's what I said. The legislation is there. The stakeholder bodies, Shipowners Association of Nigeria, the Nigerian Indigenous Shipowners Association, the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping have advocated time without number to get back to the position you're talking about. But then, who are the users of the marine services? The government, first of all.
Okay, before I let you go, vessel acquisition is a critical tool in trade facilitations. And that is why you may see foreign participation, because indigenous practitioners don't have the required vessels. So how do we go about funding for our indigenous operators to be able to participate?
Okay.
Even if we don't let the whole rat out, then maybe just some of them.
Okay.
So that we can have an NGDP for our nation and improve our economy so that this restiveness, joblessness could be reduced.
Yeah. Okay, look at it from this perspective. As of a study we did 2 years ago, the industry spend on marine service provision in Nigeria alone was close to $7 billion. And what do I call industry spend? The physical spend on freight and marine service provision to support oil and gas exploration activities. Now, acquisition of marine assets is a very expensive and capital-intensive game and cannot be done on commercial bank finance at 26%. It's impossible. The Cabotage Act makes it very clear the functions of the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund, okay, for which 2% has been deducted in the last 21 years from all marine service contracts in Nigeria. Let's start from there. Let's do an audit in the last 21 years and see what should be the value of that contribution today. And that contribution to the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund is not appropriation. It's not federal government money. It is funds that are coming from operators like us and a lot of indigenous operators in the industry. Now, that money should have gone back into our tonnage capacity enhancement and our fleet expansion. It never did. There have been different schools of thought of how funds would be disbursed. And guess what? That is also one of the reasons why the IMO doesn't take, I'm sorry to use this word, Nigeria seriously in the area of our capacity enhancement in shipping.
Apologetic about it, but that's the truth.
Yes, that's the truth. And that's why we're not on the IMO Council. That's one of the main reasons too. So we need to go back to basics. On the Nigerian Content Board, we had the same kind of formula because there's a 1% deduction that is made from all oil and gas service contracts. And a Nigerian Content Intervention Fund was set up in 2017, of which major disbursements have been made for vessel acquisition, for contractor financing, for engineering projects, refineries, and I would say at least with a 95% success rate. Originally at a rate of interest of 6%. I guess today it's about 8%. So we just need to think out of the box. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. NIMASA should actually replicate what Nigerian Content did with their intervention fund. And I believe the federal government as well has a very big role to play to address your ship financing issues, because there's been a lot of intervention in various sectors, in the aviation sector, in agriculture, in power. There's been no intervention in maritime ever since the days of the Ship Acquisition and Shipbuilding Fund, the old days of the Nigerian Maritime Authority. But shipping is one area that can take Nigeria out of poverty. And I go back to the NLNG experience, operating 23 gas carriers, operating globally, and then looking at countries like Angola. I need to talk about Angola briefly in terms of vessel acquisition. So government has a big role to play. Angola started in 2005, okay, and they set up what was called a ship pool with a company called Stena Bulk. Now, Stena Bulk is a Swedish ferry operator. So Stena came in, even though they had a small tanker department, as technical partner to the Angolan government, to their national oil company, which is known as Sonangol, our equivalent of NNPC. And in 2005, they came in with 2 tankers. Today, 19 years later, Stena Sonangol fleet is 29 ships heavy. And as I speak to you right now, there's a Stena Sonangol tanker sitting right offshore Dangote refinery, the Njinja Mbende, I believe. She's a Suezmax tanker, 150,000 deadweight tons. First time in history of Angola, owned by Angolans, operated by Angolans, manned, and the entire complement of crew of that tanker is Angolan. When did they come into the industry? So we need to take a cue on that. There's big upside for the country to get a lot of people out of poverty by investing in the marine industry and doing it the right way. I'm sorry to be critical here, but you see there are three aspects in maritime. There's the academic aspect, with all the degrees you want. There's a professional aspect, but there is, most important, the operational aspect. A lot of people who run our maritime administration, excuse me to also say this, great academic qualifications, great professional experience, but zero operational capacity. And what is required today to get us out of where we are is operational capacity, and that we lack.
What we require today to take Nigerian shipping industry out of where it is today is operational capacity. Those are the words of Mina Oforiokuma, Chairman, Sopetro, Offshore West African Limited, and former Governing Council member, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. I must say that I enjoyed this conversation, and I like the critical ways you said what you needed to say, and I look forward that Nigeria and the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy will look into these things, look into operation, and be able to move the Nigerian shipping industry forward. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
And that's our show this week. I hope that our discourse to enforce the cabotage law and the local content policy if Nigeria must partake in its domestic shipping market was impactful. Join us every week on Maritime Radar as we explore potential that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also expect the latest in global and local maritime news plus industry insights right here. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Many thanks for your time and see you again next week.